Hello, everybody, and welcome to the channel. I'm joined today by Charlie, our good friend from Wargames Atlantic. Hello.
Good morning. Or good afternoon. I don't know when this is going to go out. You never know. It's that weird thing about pre-recording stuff.
That is, time is a flat circle, I've been advised. And we're all trapped on it.
Trapped, definitely.
So it's been a little while since we spoke, and I thought it'd be great to catch up with yourself about what's going on with Wargames Atlantic, because it's been a busy time.
I think that's it. It never feels like a while because if it's like, well, one, like talking to you guys is like, talking to old friends, which is always nice. But also, we've been super busy, which is kind of, time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's what they tell me. That is what they tell me. Every day's a torture. But seriously though, the Wargames Atlantic machine, if we want to call it that, has been chugging away at a fair pace throughout 2023, and 2024 already has kicked off like there's no tomorrow with the likes of the Chariot set and this Quars War, the rifles starter set. So I thought it'd be good to find out what the state of Wargames Atlantic is, and sort of look across the whole board, from the digital miniatures to the physical and to rules as well, because this is one that sort of semi caught me out, that all of a sudden rules were starting to appear with yourself. So we'll start with the company itself then. So are you being whipped relentlessly by Hudson then? Get everything out so quickly.
I think if we went all the way back to the beginning of 2023, let's kind of start there. That's probably a good place to start. So I joined Atlantic only a few months prior to that, at the end of 2022. And 2022 had been an interesting year. Production had moved from China to the US, so that everything could be done, faster in-house, et cetera, et cetera. But that process, and Hudson would be the first to admit, that process was grossly underestimated. Just how hard and time-consuming that was going to be. So basically setting up a brand new factory, because you couldn't take all the workforce, and bring the workforce over. That was ridiculously impractical. So we had to retrain and train up a new workforce in the States. And it took minimum 6 months to get those guys, running at a speed that was maybe like 50% of what they could do in the original factory. So then obviously as 2023 came in, we had then the kind of hangover of that kind of bedding in period in 2022. And I know, Hudson was hoping by 2023 we were going to be pumping out, between 2 to 4 plastic kits a month. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So the business had to make, loads of decisions around how we make 2023 a success, because obviously, a startup company, we're still very young, just 5 years old. And we needed to be a little bit more dynamic. I think one of the things I find most exciting about Wargames Atlantic is just how dynamic a business it is. Hudson's done a fantastic job from the get-go of, being on the pulse of what gaps are in the market. Ultimately that's where, everything started with the plastics, is finding finding products that people wanted but weren't available in plastic yet. And filling those gaps. But then as time's gone on, there's only so much you can keep doing that before, I guess, ambition, but also, strategy has to change, a little bit to keep growing. So that's when the digital stuff came around. We've got an awesome team of sculptors, dotted all over the world. Again, one of the cool things about Atlantic is there's no office, and we can employ people wherever in the world. So it means you get access to the best talent, and the sculptors just produce stuff at a rate of knots that is absolutely eye-watering. We'll never ever be able to make everything that those guys sculpt in plastic, because we'd need more factories than probably all of the manufacturers in the industry put together. And that's just not going to happen. That's very costly.
Yeah.
So that's where digital kind of came around. Is okay. Well, we've got all these sculpts. What do we do with them? We've not got any desire to go into other manufacturing processes such as white metal or resin or restic or thermoplastic or whatever else that there is out there. We're all about physical products will be hard plastic kits. So the digital thing came around, and then it went great really quickly. We went up to about 800 subscribers on Tribes. We've got over 200 digital sets to purchase now, I believe, or certainly close to that number, approaching 200 now. Minimum of 11 new sets every month as part of the Tribes. And it just keeps going from strength to strength. It's a catalog that will just grow so much faster than the physical catalog will, just because there's no restraints to production. The guys design the file. We then get somebody to support it. We've got a guy that does the supports, and the guy that does the supports, or the two guys that do the supports, are amazing. I've never had a failed print yet as a result of the supports on our digital files, which is cool. So yeah, that was it. So that was great. So that added, obviously, another revenue stream coming into the business. You'll have to forgive me, and the viewers will have to just forgive me for being commercial at times, because kind of how my brain works, unfortunately. So that was great. And then we were able to get some plastic sets out, but nowhere near as many as we wanted. And really what we needed to focus on was building our stock levels up. It's obviously great producing new kits, but when we were struggling to, keep on top of the demand for existing kits, you just kind of end up feeling like you were always catching yourself up, which was mightily frustrating at times. So, speed up. We're getting to the middle of the year. We decided to run a Gamefound campaign, and that kind of was born out of a conversation internally of, well, what should we try one of these things? Like there's a lot of buzz around it, and why don't we just try with one sprue? Let's just pick a sprue. It's like, well, everybody really liked the Damned when we did the Damned through the digital, and it's very, specific, quite unique. It fits the molds. Let's just do a single frame for the Damned. And then we teamed up with Mini Wargaming to kind of help promote it. And it ended up being run largely by myself and Gaz over at Mini Wargaming, who's their business development manager, I believe is his title, or something along those lines. Yeah. And it went from 1 kit to 11 kits and became a really, really ambitious project, which is underway, which I wish I should have thought to bring a sprue. And I need to send you a sprue out of the Damned to take a look. We've got the first infantry sprue done. The command sprue is in tooling now. And then they should start to kind of roll really quickly over the next couple of months, and we'll get more and more sprues together, aiming to kind of hit the probably May, June time fulfillment. All things being well, there's still things that could crop up. If there's any issues with the tooling, it always puts us back. So if anything has to go back into tooling because something didn't, mold very well, et cetera, et cetera. But
sure.
I think that was one of the things we hadn't probably thought through. Fantastic. So you do 11 kits all at once. The second one of them doesn't work, it puts the whole project back a little bit. Yeah. So we've been okay so far, touch wood. So there's only 2 kits in the tooling yet, but it's getting there. So that was incredibly successful. We did over $300,000 in the end, with things coming through from Pledge Manager and stuff. Pledge Manager is still open as well, so people can kind of head over and check that out. But I think what's really exciting about that, from my perspective, is when we will fulfill the Gamefound. All the backers will get their stuff. There's some retailers got on board early, so they'll get it at the same time as the rest of the backers. But then it goes out to retail, and we launch a new retail range with 11 sets all at once.
Yeah, because that one was running essentially parallel to the Wargames Atlantic plan anyway.
Yeah,
that they were carved off, and that was part and parcel of the sort of the reason to go to Gamefound, which means it's essentially an army in hard plastic that's being dropped in one foul swoop, more or less. Well, for the backers anyway.
Yes, yeah.
Presumably, it may phase in for retail slightly slower.
No.
no.
When it
All of
goes to
it.
retail,
Drop
it's
it.
all at once. We've got the molds done. We'll have run a load of production for them. We'll probably double up the production in terms of the numbers, so that there'll be plenty of stock going into retailers. But it'll probably the kind of the backers and obviously the original retailers will probably have 2 months or so, kind of having that product before it goes to retail, full retail. But we're going to do it all at once. There doesn't seem we'd be holding it back for the sake of holding it back, So that's super exciting.
Yeah.
And then that kind of, we went through then the end of 2023. We started to get some more tools done for new products coming out. So the World War One British, probably one of our most successful product launches we've ever had. I don't know what game people are playing World War One, but there's people are buying so many of our World War One miniatures. It's insane.
It's not. Normally it's sitting beside me, but it's currently sitting in the studio because we've been playing some games of it. But there's a good few World War One games out there, and the one that we've been playing around with quite a bit has been Firelocks.
Yes, Blood and Valor. Yeah,
Blood and Valor. Yeah. Which has been really fun. I was looking at the British because we've got the French and we've got the Germans painted, which is great for your trench warfare in there.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the British going, well, that would be another force for that. But what I'm really hoping is at some point on the digital side, do some Scotch bonnets and stuff, so that I can run the British as black and tans, and then if you do like a little set of IRA command in full uniforms, then I could use them with the partisans, and I could do the Irish Rebellion.
Okay.
I've already got 2 hard plastic kits, just need a few bits and pieces done in the digital. I'm just throwing that one out there.
Oh, well, why not? And that's the fun thing about the digital, and it's kind of got to the point now where if somebody comes up with an idea, certainly internally as well, say, hey, why don't we do this? And then within a few days, if the team's got capacity, they'll just slot it in. And there's one I said to Hudson, we need to make a bone giant. We really need to make a bone giant. God only knows why, of course. And he's like, right, okay, leave it with me. And then about 3 days later, he's like, what do you think of this? I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And we've got a digital set it's not come out yet. And I think it's probably just because it's being supported at the moment. And sadly, some of these things just fall through the cracks sometimes, and you have to kind of remind people we need to get that finished and get it out there. And it's really cool because it comes with options for you can make a Viking bone giant, you can make a Bronze Age kind of Greco kind of giant, or etc. So there's 3 options I think in there. And a Cyclops head. But that's the fun thing about the digital. We can literally go, right, here's some bits to, modify the existing kits. I think we've kind of focused more around full sets so far in digital. I do think you hit a good point of there's a lot of stuff we could be doing as kind of additions to existing sets, existing plastic sets, to transform them from this, that to the other. And just even adding things like banners to some of the fantasy sets. Mm-hmm. So like a banner for the halflings to be able to hold a banner, and maybe one for the Lanchnecked ogres, so on and so forth.
I suppose the problem is, it's not really a problem. Over the past year, there's almost 190 sets out here.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
and a lot of them are full units, full whatever it happens to be. And then I suppose if you turn around and you go, well, maybe we'll do some little add-ons with like a command pack for the ogres or a command pack for the halflings. You go, does that really feel the same as a full set of veteran skirmishers or Zulu warriors? But I suppose you're almost hosted by your own petard because there's just been so much pushed in there.
Yeah. I think the thing that excited me the most when we started the digital kind of program was for me, it was an opportunity to test out sets that could be viable for plastic, but we're not entirely sure. So let's kind of see what happens if we put these things out in the world. And I think the Damned's a prime example of that, really, where people are like, these are really cool. I would buy loads of these if they're in plastic. So, okay, well, let's try the Gamefound with the Damned. And then, we went ahead and did that, and it worked. We've got, I just noticed you were scrolling past there, we've got the werewolves. So they're coming to a hard plastic kit because people are like, nobody makes werewolves. Why does nobody make werewolves in plastic? And they're just as generic as you can
Yeah.
get.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They can be used for all sorts. Will Raymond Daltrey over at Forbidden Psalms, they'd be great for Dread Knights,
Yeah.
this like his monster hunting games. Okay, cool. So this I think that was quite exciting. Is like be able to take some of those digital sets and turn them into plastic and actually see that happen now is really cool. And that kind of leads us on to the Vox Atlantic. So we started the whole kind of Vox Populi, the people's vote. Hudson loves his old Roman Latin stuff. So we started the Vox Populi as just an opportunity for the community, Wargames Atlantic community to I always laugh when I see that. That little column there on the right side. That's my graphic. I made that. It should be bigger and frontline and center, but hey ho. Hudson was like, I think I can better describe this than you have in that. Anyway, so we started Vox Populi as just an opportunity for customers and the community to kind of vote for sets. You essentially buy Wargames Atlantic vouchers for a particular set, and those vouchers convert into store credits, and you can use it to buy whatever you like on Wargames Atlantic. And when we first launched that, there was I would say about 50% of the community were unsure of what the concept was and how it worked.
Yeah.
Obviously, and a genuine concern that you were having to buy votes, but that's not the case. You're not buying a vote. You're buying vouchers to use on the website to buy whatever physical or digital product now that you want to buy. But when you buy those vouchers, it counts as a vote towards a particular kit.
You're putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
Essentially. So people could hang on to them until that kit actually gets rolled out into plastic, and then they've got vouchers. It all depends how frugal people are, or if they want to go, well, I'm going to throw £15 down on some Conquistador Cav, and I don't care when they're landing. I'll use them to buy a couple of boxes of Conquistadors in the meantime.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's all good.
And I mean, the main reason for doing it that way in the first place was just to stop spamming votes. You've got to be committed to making it a vote if you want to do it, rather than having people just randomly go on and just constantly click vote,
Sure.
which you get with the poll. So the Vox Populi kind of evolved at the back end of 2023, where we took it from just an opportunity to vote, and we would, eventually grab one of those kits and make it part of the range. Mm-hmm. Now it's much more transparent. It's much more upfront. Trying to think what the best words are to describe it. I feel it's a much more genuine program now.
Yeah.
So it has 3 stages. The beginning stages are the community gets to put forward suggestions by using the hashtag Vox Atlantic. They can use that on Twitter, Facebook group, Instagram, wherever they use it. We'll grab the tag. We'll look at what it is that they're suggesting. And as long as it's not horrifically offensive or absolutely ludicrous, it'll go into a poll on the website. So via the forum and stuff, and you basically go in there and you can make as many votes as you want on the poll, because what the poll does, the poll determines the next kit to kind of come into the 12, which you can actually cast official votes on that. So these are the 12 that are live at the moment, and you can see the number of votes. It should be sorted in order of highest votes to lowest. And at the moment, there is a couple of individuals that are not afraid of throwing money at Warring States infantry, which means it's very likely that that's going to be one of the next kits to come in. So it goes from the poll into, whichever's voted for highest in the poll will then move into those 12. And then out of those 12, we started with the British Expeditionary Force. We kind of took what was the most popular kit at that time. Went into pre-production sale, where essentially we're looking for $6,000 worth of pre-sales. Wargames Atlantic then matches it for another $6,000, and it goes into production straight away. So the second, the BEF, I think it took about 6 weeks for the first one, for the BEF to kind of hit that $6,000. It goes out as a reduced price as well, so there is a saving for anybody that wants to kind of get those pre-orders in. And I think it ended early December. And the BEF tooling is done. The frame test shots have come through. The box is being designed and printed now, which means they should be available to order, if we're lucky, by Salute. So early April.
Yeah.
Which, is I think a pretty rapid,
it's a hell of a turnaround for something that's not planned in, and you are essentially at the whim of
the community.
Masses.
Yeah.
The great unwashed hoi polloi.
I love it.
I'm sure Hudson would love to say. It means you can turn around and go, well, what do you fancy? And if there's the backing there to push it through quickly, then I suppose with the digital sculpting, it takes some of the heavy lifting out of the production, because you're so used to having both the Atlantic Digital and then the tooling side of it side by side. Does that mean, and you may not know this, but when they're sculpting for Wargames Atlantic Digital, do they do it with an eye on these could potentially be plastic, and therefore they need to be cut and shaped in the same way tooling would be?
Yeah, you literally just took the words. I was just about to say that. So when the guys do sculpt for the digital catalog, it is always with a view to those kits being available, ready to go into plastic. Now, there'll probably always be a little bit of fine tuning, because they're working a lot faster with the digital stuff than they probably would for plastic. There's all sorts of terminology that Hudson's thrown at me over the last 18 months around drafting and so on and so forth. Like, because it's two fixed, like rigid molds that kind of squash together, they've got to be sculpted in a way that there's never any undercuts,
Or you're not getting that out of the mold without ripping it apart.
Exactly, without the plastic just being shredded as the mold comes apart. So yes, in a nutshell, yes, which is why our digital stuff will always look different to everything else that's on the likes of MyMiniFactory and so on and so forth, because we're not sculpting just to print. We're sculpting with a view to these things being viable for plastic in the future too. So they'll always be a little bit more refined, with a lot less bells and whistles and adornment, that you kind of see on a lot of other digital stuff, which, it looks beautiful, absolutely, stunning stuff out there. But ours will always look a little bit more like a physical product you would buy in a box of sprues and stuff. Which is great, we talked a little bit before, we jumped on the recording, but the team's grown, the number of sculptors has grown over the last 12 months. We've also taken on additional engineers. We want to talk engineers, not necessarily talking about the guys that do the milling of the molds, but the actual guys that do the cutting up. So when the sculpt is done, when the sculptors are done with the product, they send it through to the engineers, and then the engineers pull it apart, and they make the cuts where it's sensible to make cuts for plastic, but also, they've got a mind for how you would reassemble these things with, polycement, et cetera. And I mean, that's an amazing talent in its own right, because you're taking this like physical model, digital model, and then dismantling it and hollowing it out in places and so on and so forth. Without doubt, it's a talent as much as the actual sculpting itself.
Well, I think very recently I unboxed the Chariot and Cavalry skeletons, and that sprue blew me away from the sheer volume on it.
Yeah.
More than I think any other sprue. And
it's a crazy product as well.
Yeah, just the sheer, and anybody who hasn't seen it yet, you should go and have a look at it. It's only 20 minutes long. It's worth your time. But there's 2 infantry, 3 cavalry, 2 steeds, plus enough options to do any of them as sword and board, javelins, bows.
Yeah.
And then I think there's a rake of additional heads and a partridge in a pear tree. I mean, that sprue in and of itself shows the evolution, I think, behind the scenes, which a lot of people don't really
100%.
I think pay attention to. They often look at, here's the box, here's what you can make from the box, and then move on with their lives. But I remember the early sprues, where the stuff, maybe there was a lot of space on the sprues, and you're going, well, could they have squeezed another X on there? And these days the answer is no. If there's any space left, I would be very shocked, which is just superb. And people need to go and have a look at that review, because that box blew me away.
Excellent. No, good. I mean, it's definitely, you're right in what you're saying. It is just the evolution of the team learning how to do more, overall. And bless Hudson, he would probably bear the brunt of some of that. Look, it's called a criticism, because I know it's not intended as a negative. But if you go back and look at our original skeletons versus this new box of skeletons, the design of the skeletons themselves is still great. They still go together beautifully. They're lovely models. But you're right. The sprue probably could have had a lot more stuff on there. And I know Hudson, when he's watching this back, will be not turning his grave. He's not dead. He'll be squirming. And that is something I will get stick for saying. He will be squirming, because it has, because Hudson is the final form of quality control, for the business. He overlooks every design, every sprue, every layout, every test shot. He sees things that I would never see, and bless him, he sends me, I get a lot of the test shots through. He always sends me a photo when something comes out the factory. I'm like, oh, it looks amazing. And then he's like, well, no, I'm not really happy about this, and we really should do something about that. And it looks great to me, know. And probably to the rest of the world, probably wouldn't be fazed by it either. So if I'll circle back really quickly to kind of the Vox Populi thing.
Sure.
So the BF are about to be fulfilled. So what we did, the second version, or the second kit to come through, was the Conquistador Cavalry. Was kind of voted on. We kind of set a deadline, right? We're going to pick one in the next couple of weeks. So if you want to get any more votes in, get them in. The Conquistador Cavalry, I think I can't remember what it edged out, but it edged something out in the end. I think might have been one of the sci-fi sets to kind of just pip the kind of mark. But that one hit its target within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Which was just mind-blowing, And I think hopefully that is a result of showing the process, to the community of with the BF. And it now, almost being available to purchase. And those guys and girls that have bought it already will get it, really soon. Before it hits retail. So that was great. And it kind of marked the start of a new phase for the whole kind of Atlantic digital, which had been an idea that I've been cooking since kind of mid 2023 of well, how do we, what more can we do with the digital stuff? So I reached out to a load of rules writers, authors, and largely picked people that I liked the cut of their jib, rules that I liked, but also the way that these authors had engaged with their communities, the way the way that they looked, the way they felt like a good fit for Wargames Atlantic. So we approached all those guys and said, look, would you be interested in selling a digital version of your product via the Wargames Atlantic website? And by and large, everybody said yes. So I think we launched with about 4 or 5 authors to begin with. And a lot of it had come from what people had been mentioning in the Wargames Atlantic Facebook group. We've got an amazing Facebook community, 7,700 people in that Facebook group now.
Join the Legion.
Talking about all sorts of hobby, the Legion, yeah, all sorts of hobby stuff. And the games that they'd mentioned were some of the people that I reached out to. And we popped those products up as kind of part of the digital offering. So a lot of this has kind of been happening quite quietly in the background, not making too much of a song and dance about it. The Scouts Out, that's actually been one of the most popular rule sets that we've put up. That, in fact, mind-blowingly popular in comparison to kind of expectations. But again, like we said, we've not made a big song and dance about these things yet. So,
well, this was it, because I hadn't realized that it had already hit the website. There's a few people that I follow on Facebook, and I'd seen them pinging up that they were doing stuff with yourself. So the likes of Force of Virtue from Masterwork and Bella Ludi. Yes. Which I have a ton of the Bella Ludi rules and the card decks because they're great. Yeah. And it was whenever these were all pinging up, and it was like, oh, bing, going to Wargames Atlantic, and Wargames Atlantic going to split. I'm going, are they? I've not heard of this, and hadn't realized that there were already products up on the Atlantic store as well.
Yes. So it's like it's kind of it's an evolution of the business. We go back to what you said. Is Hudson cracking the whip? And that kind of brings me to the answer to that question as we kind of come into, I guess, what is now we're talking about getting into the early part of 2024. Catching us up to where we are right now. Hudson is without doubt one, if not the best, one of the best bosses I've ever had. Certainly, since moving to the tabletop industry about 8 years ago. The freedom that Hudson affords everybody within the business is absolutely incredible, and I think that's built on hiring the right people, picking people that he believes share the same vision, the same enthusiasm, passion, ambition, to see the business grow. And I think part of it is also, individual passion and ambition, and recognizing that in people, but then with the right kind of attitude that it's not all about them. It's about us. It's about how we can grow. What can we do collectively? And I've just ended up sticking my finger in every single nook and cranny of Wargames Atlantic that I could stick it in, and gone, I think they should be doing that, and I think we should be doing that with this, and why don't we try this, and why don't we give this a go? And it's just been absolutely bags of fun. The whole kind of taking on some digital rules was me going, why don't we do this? Like, we sell STL, why don't we sell rules? Like, why is the only place you can get digital rules Drive-Through RPG or their subsidiaries?
Yeah.
Why is the only place you can buy STLs, MyMiniFactory? It doesn't need to be the case. So there's an absolute raft of books on there, and every single one of those is worth a read. I think that's quite a nice thing about kind of curating a catalog.
Yeah.
It's not all me. That a big chunk of that is Hudson too. I've formed a great relationship with Will, who does the Forbidden Psalm stuff, and more news on that in a minute. But then the Scouts Out guys are really nice, chill dudes. Been hoping it'd be great to do some more with those guys in the future. I know that somebody wants to do a collaboration with them that I've not even told them about yet, which I need to get to at some point this week. So that could be fun.
Yep.
But yeah, so it's just been great. And because Hudson kind of gives you the creative freedom to just throw ideas out there, I'll to coin a phrase of a friend of mine. It's kind of best idea wins.
Yeah.
You know, we come up with ideas, and then whatever seems to make the most sense at the time, we'll run with.
Yeah.
So the idea of the Vox Populi and kind of moving that forward into Vox Atlantic, which now is a system that has a start and a finish to it, but it's all community driven. The customer gets to decide what products we're going to make next, literally.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. How many companies say they can do that? The digital catalog will continue to expand. The digital offering will continue to expand. We'll start doing digital games where there'll be a set of rules and a set of files that you can buy all in one and just go home and fire up your 3D printer, fire up your own print, your normal, was it inkjet printers, or send it off to a printer or whatever you do. Or have it on your iPad, whatever floats your boat. That's the fun thing about the digital stuff. But I think one of the things we struggled with digital, kind of mid 2023, was everybody like, oh, is Wargames Atlantic just going to turn into a digital company? And I totally understand where people are coming from, because the sheer volume of digital stuff we do is always going to outweigh physical.
Yeah.
Even as we start to ramp up the physical again, even then we're looking at maybe 1 to 2 plastic releases a month.
Yeah, it's just the nature of the beast. Just the actual physical production will always lag behind.
Exactly.
And the cost as well.
100%. There's a huge amount of cost involved in doing the physical stuff. But we're lucky, because everything, touch wood, everything we've done so far is still selling well and still sells through. I can't count the amount of times grognards and conquistadors have gone out and sold out in the last 12 months. We've just put another 1,000 conquistadors into stock. We hit 2024 with $800,000 worth of stock across the 3 warehouses, which is a great amount of stock.
Yeah.
And we're managing to keep on top of it. The conquistadors went out of stock faster than planned, so they've probably been out of stock for about a month, but they'll be back in stock this week.
Well, that's good. Just in time for people to pick up the cavalry.
Just in time for people to grab the cavalry in hopefully probably about 2-3 months' time. So we started 2023 we finished 2024 with grognard cavalry. Excuse me, but it literally landed right at the end of December. So a lot of people are picking them up in January. We then had the skeleton cav and chariot kind of multi-set, which, if you bought 3 of those, you've got a skeleton army, because like you said, you can build them with chariots, or you can build the cavalry, or you can use the guys that would ride on the back of the chariots can be made into infantry if you want.
Yep.
And by the time you bought 3 boxes, there's tons of potential infantry there, at least 2 or 3 units for kind of most fantasy games. And then we've got the Quar game, which is the first kind of passion project for Wargames Atlantic, I think. Something Hudson has always loved. And again, I stuck my beaky nose into that about 6 months ago, and got to know Josh from Zombie Smith. I know you've had the pleasure of talking to Josh recently.
Spoke to him a couple of weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah, and he's just one of the nicest guys in the world, and he's like the most humble and modest guy I've ever known. He did 18 years at Pixar and worked on some of the biggest films that Disney and Pixar have ever released, and he never talks about it.
Yeah, no, that was a throwaway line when everyone was like, "What you do?" Oh, I did this. I went, "All right, okay." Yeah, fair enough then.
I'm like, Josh, you don't realize how great of a thing this is. From somebody like I'm a salesman through and through. That's it's my first hobby. It's my first passion. I really enjoy that side of my work life. Josh, you worked on The Incredibles. You worked on Brave, Wall-E, Ratatouille. Like, these things are huge. We should be telling people about that.
Quar, from the designer of ...
Yeah, yeah, but and it's got. I mean, there's a PlayStation game for the Qua because after he left Pixar, he went
Mm.
and launched a games company, and they made some fantastic games, console games. But the Qua game was one of the first VR games for PlayStation VR. And like it's mind blowing, and like obviously not many people have actually heard of it. Um, and then the penny drop moment was great for me. The kind of like 6 months ago, where Josh said that he worked for Pixar. And that makes a lot of sense
Mm.
now. That when you pick up the Qua models, you're like they have a very kind of Pixar whimsical feel to them.
Cute. They're cute World War One anteaters.
Yeah, they're just wicked. I
Yeah.
absolutely love them, and I think most people like, and it's been quite entertaining to watch the Facebook group. Like the Legion, the Wargames
Yeah.
Atlantic Legion Facebook group, as people who quite clearly were absolutely not interested in these weird looking things. To like now, as there's stuff going out to people and they're painting them and building them and stuff, going, oh, actually, these are growing on me.
Mm.
It's like I'm really interested in this now. I had no interest to begin with. So there's the box game, which is up for pre-order now. It'll be shipping in the next couple of days. So
Mm.
anybody that's pre-ordered it will have it. Maybe even by the end of the week, if not by early next week. And it's a second version of Josh's skirmish rules, called a rifler's pocketbook,
Mm.
which is it basically pits kind of 12 models against 12 models, ultimately designed to be played on like a 2x2 or a 3x3. It's got some really wonderful mechanics in it. The activation sequence is really cool. So you have a deck of cards that you share, and there are three activation cards. No, there's three, four activation
Yeah.
cards, three, 4, 3, and 3, 2. I think it is, or it might
A
be
couple of twos and a couple of fives. It's like
fives. That's it.
it's
Yeah,
like an average dice. You've got very few of the extremes. Most of them are down the middle. Yeah.
exactly right. Yes, but the really quirky bit about it is if we're playing, I draw your card. So
Yeah.
then I get to kind of have a look. And so you're always going to have a minimum of, it's a minimum of three. So
Yep.
there's 3 3s, 4 4s, and 3 5s.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you've always got a minimum of three activations. So you'll decide to split your activations between your models. You can activate one model up to 2 times. So you might go, well, I'm going to activate this model twice, then I'm going to activate this model once. Have I got any more
Yeah.
activations to make? And I'll go, well, yes, you have. And like, oh, okay, cool. So I'll do this here. Have I got any more activations? No, no more now.
No.
And then
No. You've overextended, and now your little Croftian is about to get shot in the face
you,
repeatedly.
you might have thought you had five, and it kind of then becomes like a game of bluff of like kind of saying, oh yes, and oh
Can
maybe.
you read your opponent?
Yeah, and it's just it's different because you're not, like I say, you're not drawing your own cards, and it's
Mm.
quite quirky. It's a 3d6 system, so you roll 3d6 for every test, and it has different special procs rules that'll fire off on different dice rolls. So if you roll 3 1s and 2 1s and extra 6s, etc., better things happen and worse things happen and stuff. So it's got enough kind of depth to it to make it a worthwhile skirmish game where it's got extra depth in the rules. But there's also a mass battle rule set to follow, which will probably come out in around 2 to 3 months. Maybe even with a bigger starter set. We'll have to wait and see.
You terrible tease.
Yeah, we're working on the next frame now, which may or may not include a tractor, which is basically a tank in the world of the Qua. They call them tractors, and again, they're weird, whimsical, funky-looking things. So they're almost steampunk meets diesel punk kind of look to them, but with it less cogs. So really excited about that. And that was the first venture into a box game. It's doing well. It's doing about as well as expected, which is great. Certainly enough so for us to start thinking about what the next sets look like. The inventory boxes are being designed up now. The artwork and the boxes are being done, so you'll be able to buy more infantry separate from the starter set within a couple of months too. But it's not going to be the first. It's not going to be the last game we do. We've also got Will Raymond Daltrey's Forbidden Psalm: The Last War coming out as a box game. And I, again, this is, so talking about creative freedom, I designed the box art, not the box art, but the box layout. So taking some of Will's artwork that he'd had done, and it looks awesome. It's a really cool box, a really striking box.
Yeah.
But it's a great rule set for anybody that hasn't seen it. Will's Forbidden Psalm rule set is awesome. It's got loads of renditions of fantasy, cyberpunk, this kind of weird World War I setting, which is the last war that we're doing. And in the box, you'll get a frame of each British, German, French, and World War I Russians, which are about to release now, as well as some. It's a polyhedral dice set, so seven dice from a D6 through to a D20. A lovely set of rules, updated version of the Last War rules, so kind of Mark II, which will only be available in this box set to begin with, thanks to Will, which is really cool. So that'll hopefully be out for Salute. We've just got to get the book printed, but the boxes have been printed, the models are ready, the dice are done. It's just the book and the tokens that need to go out for that. And that's the second game. We're then probably going to be distributing Andy Hobday's Footsaw's Gangs of Rome.
Gangs of Rome, yeah.
Because there will be a starter set for Gangs of Rome, which he might kill me for saying it now, because I don't know if he's even told anybody. This is a 2-player starter set. I think he might have.
I think there's stuff about anyway. I think.
So hopefully. If not, there you go, exclusive. So that, because that's got our plastics in, that Andy worked on with our UK sculptor, Rob McFarlane, the legend that is. And that sprue is, I don't know if have you seen the Gangs of Rome sprue yet?
I haven't seen the sprue, but one of our community members who did play testing and worked with Andy, Pete, he got a set of the early prints. And so I've seen him playing around with the multi-part prints, making various things. He did a few posts in some projects on the website as well. And it's an attractive looking set of miniatures, because I've always wanted a set of, I've always wanted to do the Third Servile War, the Spartacus essentially.
Yeah. But
finding enough gladiatorial type people to field against a Roman army is incredibly expensive, because you're having to do it entirely in metal. Whereas this is pretty much there. All you need to do is start sticking on some Scutum shields on a few of them, or add some tridents or whatever, various gladiatorial equipment. You can do the Third Servile War quite happily now.
100%. Yeah. And the kit combines really nicely with our other, period specific stuff. The not so much the late Romans, because obviously they've got chainmail arms and stuff, but you can certainly use the heads and the helmets from that set. And then I've actually used some goth parts on the Gangs of Rome set, just for, again, a bit more variation. But the sprue itself is amazing. It's got so much stuff on it. I reckon there's got to be getting on for a few thousand variations of model you could produce without producing the same thing twice. And like, there's every arm is separate. There's all sorts of arms on there, from things holding, amphora to throwing weapons, daggers, all sorts, clubs, loads of just hands loose as well. Tons of head options. It's absolutely mind-blowing in terms of how much stuff's on there. It's
just a kit basher's dream.
Absolute kit basher's dream.
Yeah. Which is one of the things I know Hudson really loves, is just not having to be restricted in build. Just
Yeah.
because a box contains 10 models, they shouldn't be the same 10 every time.
No, definitely
and,
not.
and having all the extra bits and pieces in there and picking up a box of X and a box of Y.
Yeah.
Even for things like the Last War, having the basis of your World War One troopers, but then being able to add the extraneous bits from somewhere else, be it
Yeah.
green stuff or another kit or whatever it happens to be, to drop them into that terrifying world of madness.
100%. And the whole point of doing the 4 different sprues in the Last War set was you can then kit bash between nationalities as well, because for anybody that doesn't know what the Last War is, it's a post-apocalyptic World War One setting, where your war band is a group of scavengers, essentially, but soldiers that have scavenging the trenches. They're kind of trapped in eternal trench warfare. There's a fog stopping anybody from really being able to navigate anywhere, etc. And we probably will, hopefully, with Will's blessing, do a lot of digital stuff for that, where you can download different monsters and things. But there's also other people out there already doing, various gribblies and bits and bobs for the Last War. So that's really cool. And I'm hopeful we'll do another set with Will. Hudson's really keen to do some cyberpunk stuff. So Will has Kill Sample Process, which is, again, based on the Forbidden Psalm rule set. So be familiar to anybody that's, then played the Last War. But also then there's the Forbidden Psalm, the original one, the fantasy, which has just gone through a really successful Kickstarter for Will to do the second edition of the rule book. I mean, incredibly successful, for just a rule book.
Yeah.
So maybe we do something with that in the future too. I also really like the setting of Dread Knights, which is like almost kind of Monster Hunter. I'm sure it's set kind of modern age, or it's set at the turn of the millennium, if I remember rightly. I haven't dove that much into it just yet, but the idea of it
was real.
Cool. Yeah. and all of a sudden there's monsters in the world.
Yeah.
Forgive me, Will, if I'm deviating too much from the actual plot, but it sounds cool.
Yeah. If it's not that, we'll see a spin-off.
A spin-off at some point, I guess. And then we've gone and brought on a very popular rules writer who's coming on board to do some work with us in-house over the next, however many years, and hopefully that becomes a long-term permanent move for them. I can't say who yet, but it'll come out when it's ready to come out, when they're ready for it to come out. Hudson's always really kind of chilled about that kind of stuff. Like Rob McFarlane didn't want to make a big song and dance about coming on board. They'll probably be cursing me for talking about it too much, but that's Rob didn't want to, so Hudson didn't. It's been great. And I think that kind of brings us to where we are. In terms of future plans, there's all sorts of awesome ideas. And if people want to see teasers, Hudson's terrible for posting things into the Facebook group, and the Friday newsletter always has sneak peeks on it of what might be coming next.
If anybody is unaware of the Wargames Atlantic website, and if you've got this far into the video without being aware of it, well done. But definitely you should come across the things like the articles and news are always stuff filled, and then you can sign up to the newsletter there. For example, the classic fantasy elves have been added. I remember seeing renders for those, I'm going to say 2 years ago. There were some initial renders, maybe 2-3,
early 2022 maybe.
So it's nice to see that they're being pushed into the Vox Populi, and I imagine they're going to be very popular because they were classic Wood Elf,
very classic Wood Elf looking. Yeah. If they don't jump up, I mean, I reckon they'll challenge the Warring States. If the Warring States don't make it, it'll probably be either the classic fantasy elves or maybe one of the Deathfield's weapons teams are kind of in the mix as well. I believe Cannon Fodder HQ Command is in there.
And then
And there's the classic forum.
there's the Legion forum, yeah.
Yeah, which is going strong, rocking and rolling. We do a painting competition via the forum every month, which has different themes, which again you can find out about via the blog or the Facebook group or in the forum itself. Digital dioramas, that's the theme for February. And then we're going to be branching off into some other things, so some other ranges, tabletop stuff, but not quite role playing. I've just given it away. not quite wargaming specific. Maybe other things, but that's something else I'm really excited about, because that's going to have its own look and feel to it, and is really exciting, really different. So yeah, it's a real fun place to be, and it's a growing team. It was a very lean business. A lot of what we do is outsourced, apart from the important stuff, which is the manufacturing, the design, and ultimately the sales side of things. We've a growing retail community of stores coming on board all over the world. We've got some support from some fantastic distributors in Nullstar and Alliance, Golden, Blackfire.
I know Josh was saying, as far as some of their bits and pieces from Zombie Smith side, the blisters and metals will hopefully be stocked alongside the plastic starter set.
Yeah, the stock is in the US warehouse. We're just waiting for it to land in the UK, which I think is this week. I think Wednesday. It's coming into the UK alongside the Russians and the other restocks, the Ura and Conquistadors. That we're not waiting for Ura yet. We're actually getting ahead of the game with the Ura. And then we've got some real fun stuff that I must come on and talk to you about, even if it's only a short one, of games that are going to be coming out that I don't want to talk about just yet, because some of it's weird, some of it's fun, some of it's silly, some of it will be free. So that's going to be good fun. So yeah, well, maybe the
price of that.
Well, in fact, what we might do is have a chance to talk about it at Salute.
Yes. We'll definitely put time aside to grab you at Salute and
I'll
bend your ear, see what is going on and what's happening in the wonderful world of Wargames Atlantic. Then
I think if anybody wants to see the quad game, they'll be able to see it at Salute as well. I think Josh is planning to come over, and we'll be doing some demos on the Sarissa stand.
Oh, fantastic!
The quad games, that should be quite good fun. But yeah,
excellent stuff. I think that's a full and frank exchange there regarding where you've been and where you're going to this year.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, Charlie. If anybody at home has any questions, please feel free to drop them below and we'll pass them across. Otherwise, definitely get yourself over to the Wargames Atlantic website, sign up for the newsletter and join the Legion, and then vote for the things I want, which is Trojans, Interwar, British, Black and Tans and IRA. Add all of those. Go team go. Until next time, bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.